Hiya! So, it is time for my May reading wrap-up. I almost said June, also it being June. Happy Pride Month. There are some queer books in my May reading wrap-up, and of course there will be some in my June reading wrap-up. Obviously, read diverse books all year round, but why not, while it's Pride Month, find some more queer literature? Anyway, I'm just gonna dive right into this video. I realized I didn't set up my mics. I know I didn't set up my lights. I did that on purpose because they're packed away. I think I unpacked my mic, so I should have done that, so hope the audio is okay. So I'm gonna start with an audiobook. No One Is Too Small. This is Greta Thunberg's book about global climate change, of course. It's very short. I listened to the whole thing after a procedure on a Saturday. I listened to it in like a couple hours when I was just laying in bed. Basically, it's saying like chop chop, we need to take action against global climate change to try to stop global climate change. She does talk about a bit what actions countries should take to stop global climate change, especially Western countries. And while obviously I interpreted the name as, not obviously, but I interpreted the name as being about like, even though she kind of started her activism journey as a child, like no one is too small. I'm a very short person, so I was like, you know, you're so right. Also the whole like, that's a Lord of the Rings quote, right? I can't remember the exact quote. Kind of like no one is too small to make a difference, but it's kind of more about countries themselves. Basically, I believe Greta is from Sweden, and she was saying like countries like Sweden that are small still can have a big impact on global climate change. So I think that was kind of what she was getting at when she was saying no one is too small, that even the smaller countries should put in their work. Of course, I do think these big, like America, is going to have a major impact, and that's so unfortunate right now. But that being said, that doesn't mean that the smaller countries shouldn't care. Anyway, the planet is dying and we need to make a change. Policy needs to be put into place to make sure that the planet doesn't die, because it does also, the book talks about politicians and billionaires being a big source for the demise of the planet. Something that, I don't know if this is a direct quote, but I believe it, I might be paraphrasing, or it's a direct quote, but I wrote down, the bigger your platform, the bigger your responsibility, the bigger your carbon footprint, the bigger your moral duty. So I believe she's saying, which is huge, like billionaires killing the planet because they do have a bigger carbon footprint. And of course, I encourage individuals to reduce their carbon footprint in any way they can, do anything we can as individuals to help save the planet. But that being said, it's really unfortunate how if billionaires don't put in the work, we're fucked. So moving on to a fiction book I borrowed from the library that I have talked about previously, because I think I started it the month before. Listen, it feels like it has been 10 years in the past month. Either way, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. It was so good. And it's going to be very interesting for me to do a synopsis of the plot, because I don't want to give away any spoilers. So I'm going to kind of give a very, very, very concise synopsis to avoid that. And start by saying different time periods. I think that's something I've only read, because this is by V.E. Schwab. The only other V.E. Schwab book I've read is Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and that, of course, she goes through different time periods. So I think it's something that V.E. Schwab might like to write about in different time periods, because it starts in the 1500s, Santo Domingo. We're following Maria. It starts as she's a young girl, and skip ahead, she's an adult. And she is looking to kind of get out of her life, to have an adventure, to do more. She feels like she was made for more than the life that she was given. So she meets a Viscount who was coming through town, and that's when things kind of change for her. She also, at a young age, she met a widow that kind of very much intrigued her, and she was very much drawn to, and that's a big part of her story as well, but I'm gonna stop there. It also follows Alice. Alice is from Scotland, but she moved to Boston for undergrad. That time period is 2019. Still a period piece. Crazy to say. So she's also kind of trying to get away from her life. She wanted to do more. She wanted to go to Boston. And hey, there's a song about that. She's just looking to kind of start anew in a new country at 18 years old, and one night she's out at a party and she meets a woman because she is a lesbian. And then We also have 1800s England, London. There's Charlotte. This is the Regency era. So Charlotte's her story starts with her and her friend Jocelyn that she has feelings for, which obviously isn't allowed. So she has to go stay with her aunt in London to be, I guess for lack of better words, like trained in how to be a proper lady and like be a part of court. She is not making her debut in court in the season, all that jazz, but she is learning the steps, and she then meets a mysterious woman that's unlike everyone else in court. So again, it's a queer story. It's a very interesting story. It very much pulled me in. And also, I'll talk about, hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. It has very evocative writing. I remember at one point I was genuinely feeling like the discomfort and panic during one of the scenes. Like it just felt so real, even though it was just words on a page. I just genuinely, the writing was so evocative that I was able to feel those emotions. And I wouldn't say it's super plot focused. There is a plot, of course, but I did kind of feel like, at least my personal take on it, was that it was more of a character exploration of these three women and of the female rage and their wants. Like, want was a big theme in this, and I do feel like want and like desires and I guess even like female rage and just like all of that has been a kind of theme that I've been reading recurringly as of late, and they do hit, I can't lie. One criticism, I do wish that when something is in the subtext, I would say it's even like overtly implied, that they don't then say what it is and explain it. Of course, this is something that I have repeatedly noticed is in books and films and TV shows these days, and I hate it. Like, why are we getting rid of subtext and letting that die? And then it's like, I've gone on this rant so many times, but how can it not be like a double-edged sword of like, oh, no one has critical thinking skills, but we're gonna make it so they don't need to analyze media. There's no media literacy, but we're going to take away any reason for there to be media literacy by just explaining everything, making it so on the nose. No. I know, like. Okay, moving on. It is a slow story. It's very drawn out. I wouldn't say that it is like insufferably paced. It is just a long story. That's, if I'm going to say anything, like I said, I would call it drawn out, but it didn't bother me with how slow it was in the way books have in the past, but I just thought I'd say that. I also wouldn't really call it scary. I believe it is in the horror genre, or at least subgenre, I would say, because it's also in the fantasy. It's multiple genres in this book, and I love that it doesn't stick to one box. But I wouldn't call it... Now, what are these planes doing? I feel like they're just circling around my house. So yeah, I guess scary could be a word to describe it, but I personally would describe it more as unsettling, which to, like, I would definitely say there's a difference between it being scary and unsettling. And for me, the way, again, this goes with the evocative writing. The night I finished it, I did not sleep well because I just still felt those feelings that were given off in the book. And I will also say the author loves the word wake, like leaving things in their wake. That was said a lot throughout the book, but hey, like, we all have our words and phrases that we like. So again, I really did enjoy this book. I will say, compared to like Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, the other book I've read by this author, I did like this one better. Definitely recommend it. But if you do get scared a little more easily or unsettled a little more easily, maybe not. Maybe at least read some warnings. I don't know. I know there's websites that have warnings, so definitely look that up because I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah. Okay, so Feybound. I started Feybound. I don't feel like I can give a full synopsis and review because I'm not that far into it, because I would be further, but I was logged out of my borrow box for a bit because I changed my PIN when I went to the library, and it was a whole thing because I was like, wait, because first borrow box was like not making me put in the PIN, and then was making me put in the PIN, and for some reason was accepting the PIN, and was like, I know this is right. So I think it just took a few days to update, like I had a new PIN. So anyway, so I couldn't read it because I'm borrowing this from the library, but I still have a good few days left with it, so I will be able to finish it. So Feybound is, of course, it's a Fey story. It is about war. I'm trying to think, because I know I can't give a full synopsis yet, but a good way to put, it's also a queer story. Something I did write down about it is that it felt like there was a lot of biblical allegory in the world building. I don't know the Bible that well. I'm not religious at all. So biblical allegory does tend to be lost on me, but it felt like it was kind of on the nose. So yeah, it's about a war. There's like 4 different fae factions, I guess, and they call it the Forever War because they just felt like where there's magic, where there's power, there's always going to be war. That's kind of all I'll say about it right now. I'm enjoying it. I don't know, like I feel like I have to get more into it. Right now I like it, but I'm like, it's not pulled me in completely. So we'll see. I do really want to like it, of course, but that's all I have to say about that book. Finally, I also listened to Good Immigrant. So this is a collection of, I would say, I don't know if memoirs is the right word, but it's people's life stories, different people of color in the UK talking about their experiences with racism and prejudice and all this kind of stuff. And it was very interesting to hear people's personal stories, and while there was a lot of diversity within the stories, a lot of people from different backgrounds with different stories, there were things in common that people just who experience racism can relate on. But also, if you're not someone who experiences racism, I think it's important to hear these stories to understand, because you're not going to understand fully. Like, you're not going to understand the experience, you're not going to know the experience. I don't know the experience, but with reading and all that kind of stuff, it allows you to temporarily put yourself into someone else's shoes to understand their story. And I think, again, I've spoken about this before when I've read other books about racism, that it is important to educate yourself on what other people are going through, and that's how you can kind of be a better ally. And that's all I have for May. I honestly cannot remember if I finished Happy Place in April or May. So if I didn't talk about Happy Place in my April reading wrap-up, if I did finish it in May, I don't know. I don't know. But again, that was also a good book, Emily Henry romance. I know I definitely talked about it before. Reconnection story that I do recommend. Second Chance, I guess, is what people call it. I'm not sure. But that is all I have to say. That is this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. And I, of course, will do more videos all throughout the month and year and forever until I stop. So yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.